Salutations, people! Welcome to Page 3 Killers, Murders That Went Unnoticed, a podcast where we dive into the murder cases that went unnoticed by our nation's newspapers.
Hi, Shay.
Hi, John.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys. Welcome back.
And welcome to Page 3 Killers, Murders That Went Unnoticed, Season 2, Episode 43.
Yeah, I forgot to, enlarge that a little bit because you're blind.
Yeah, shut up.
All right, guys. So we have an interesting episode this week. We're going to be doing a case out of England. I know we've done a couple of cases this year. This one here is pretty recent. I believe the time frame of this one is 2015. We're going to be talking about Stephen Port, serial killer.
Out of England.
Yeah. So we got quite a few interesting news stories, and our topic is pretty interesting. They actually did a live action movie. It was like a drama series. There was like 3 episodes or something like that. And it was really good. It came out literally a few months ago is when I saw it on there, but I think it came out in January, February.
Is this like a British thing?
Yes. It was a British crime drama. True crime. True based off of this, and it was a dramatization of it.
It's Britain's big thing. They do the mini-series. Yes,
but I love them.
Well, they're in favor now in America too, so.
Yes. If you're not into getting into something that's got a ton of seasons, and it's something short, they have several of them where it's based off of true events, which you like things that are based off of true events, for movies and stuff. But I think you would have enjoyed it. It was a pretty good series to watch. It was pretty interesting, and it pretty much touched on everything, all the research I was able to find, which is great.
So that brings up something completely off topic that I just thought of.
What?
So, Harry Potter should have been Lord of the Rings, and each book should have been a season.
Yeah,
I think that would have been better.
You mean Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones, that's what I meant.
Yeah, because Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter.
Yeah, they're basically the same thing.
Yeah, so it definitely should have been more like Game of Thrones. I think it would have been much cooler. I know a lot of people that put down the movies because they're like, oh, so much happens in the book that they don't talk about.
Yeah, because those books need a 6-hour movie to really tell the story.
Yeah, to tell every little thing. So yeah, I think.
And instead, they only made 3-hour movies.
Yeah, it's the last season of Game of Thrones. Put all the money and budget into the first 7 episodes, and then fuck the last episode.
It was the last episode. It wasn't like anyone was gonna care.
They're
listen, anyone was gonna stop watching.
Everybody is going to stop watching after the Night King dies. So, spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen it yet. Sorry. But
I think they could have guessed.
Yeah. One of the best scenes ever in Game of Thrones would have to be that scene. So, yeah. As I was talking
right after all the booby scenes.
Yeah. Although the last season really didn't have any boobies.
That's why everyone hated it. Just saying. Coincidence? I think not. Anyway, on to our actual podcast.
Yeah. So I was talking about, Stephen Port and the series that they did about this case. And I'm just going to point out, they made the cops look like complete a-holes. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. They made it look like, and I'm pretty sure to some extent that the cops really didn't think that there was something like this going on. And they just sort of were like, it's just a couple of people who look like they died of drug overdoses. It can't possibly be a serial killer. and it turns out they were wrong. So I get where like everybody was coming from on it, but they made the one liaison officer look so bad, and I really have to wonder if he was like that bad in real life, or if it was just
some dramatization.
yeah. So I don't want to like say that series is like 100% what happened. It's definitely coming more from the perspective of the family members that had to like follow up on all of this case. Every like thing about this case they had to follow up on.
So it's more like a docudrama.
Yeah. Yeah. But enough about the series. Everybody can check it out. I'll put the title down in the bio and all that. So let's just move on to thanking our patrons. So huge shout out to Christy Bryson, Chelsea Hargrett, and Stacey Fragale. Thank you guys so much for donating on Patreon. We appreciate your guys' support. If you guys out there want to support the podcast, you can hit us up on Patreon, like, share, or subscribe. All that stuff.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So now for our news. So this is 2015. So we've got one of the biggest things that came out of 2020 COVID was the whole thing about Jeffrey Epstein, right?
It was way before COVID.
I mean, but that's when like it was going around on TikTok, like at the beginning of COVID, like the whole like Jeffrey,
Epstein didn't
kill himself. Yeah, that was that whole thing on TikTok, right? So on January 2nd of 2015, Buckingham Palace basically, denies any suggestion of impropriety with underage minors by Prince Andrew, Duke of York. And he was named in, after he was named in U.S. court documents related to a lawsuit against convicted sexual offender, American financier Jeffrey Epstein. So, yeah.
All right. So this is all you need to know about how this went.
Yeah.
Okay. His defense of himself was that the girls said that he was sweating profusely during the act. And his defense was, oh, well, I have what is it called? A genetic disorder that doesn't allow me to sweat. And during the interview, the interviewer goes, "You're sweating right now." He goes, "Oh, well, I got it back."
Wait, whose defense was that?
Prince Andrew.
I'm just gonna.
So they couldn't possibly be telling the truth because he wasn't even able to sweat at the time. So their entire story is false.
How gullible does he think that the public is?
Gullible to let him to do that for 30, 40 years.
I mean, the public
still hasn't gotten away with it. Or everyone knew it. It wasn't a secret.
It's kind of ridiculous. I can't believe that the governments let people get away with this stuff because they're high up in power. Like I get he was probably protected by the crown. I'm just gonna, God, I love Elizabeth though, Queen Elizabeth. I love her. I did love her. Yeah, we're just gonna move on.
All the bodies.
It's just like all the stuff that they're not gonna put into the final seasons of The Crown, right? They might. I think the next season of The Crown is supposed to focus on
how she killed Diana.
Yeah, the time frame around Diana's death, and everything that leads up to that. I was probably gonna focus more on her like husband cheating on her and whatnot.
And then her murder.
But yeah, apparently they're gonna have the scene in there with the revenge dress, is what I'm hearing. Which was like a huge deal. I kind of remember seeing it on the news after she died. Because it was huge. And then I had the stamps. Like it was like
The
well,
Princess Di stamps.
yeah, no idea. Somebody was like holding on to those, and then I never saw them again. So they're probably gone.
I'm more
Probably
interested
gone.
on how you're gonna pronounce these people's names.
Okay, the next one. So the next one is probably the biggest news story of that year. All right. So on January 7th, uh, everybody should know what happens on January 7th, but just in case you guys don't remember, it's the attack on Charlie Hebdo, Hebdo,
Hebdo.
Hebdo in Paris. So on January 7th at about 11:30 local time, two French Muslim terrorists, they were two brothers, Saeed and Sharif Kuji. How close was I? I'm pretty sure I pronounced the
first
the
you got
first
the
names
first
right.
names right.
Yeah, because I have a client. I have a client with those with that first name, and then I knew the second name was pretty easy to
Pretty
pronounce.
phonetic.
Yeah, pretty frenetic. The last name is
Sure, we'll go with what you said.
yeah. So they basically forced their way into the offices of the French satirical weekly newspaper, armed with rifles and other weapons. They killed 12 people and injure 11 more. The gunmen identified themselves as belonging to the Islamic terrorist group Al Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which did take responsibility for the attacks afterwards. Several related attacks followed in the
Somewhere in France.
A French region that I can't pronounce. I am so sorry. On January 7th through the 9th of that year, including the Hypercatcher kosher supermarket siege, where terrorists killed 4 Jewish people. Yeah. So all that happened, like, within a few day period. So it kind of became, like, the big thing. Like, that was talked about for the rest of the year. Besides our shitty political system. Pretty much. Do you want to
Sure.
take one or two?
Ethel Lang, the last person living in the UK who was born during the reign of Queen Victoria, dies at 114.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine, like, being the last person who remembers the reign?
She wouldn't have remembered it.
Okay. Yeah, she would have been like a baby, right?
She was born, like, at the very end of Queen Victoria's rule.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Queen Victoria's 1903 she died?
Yeah.
Right? So, and she would have been born in 1901. She would have been 2 years old, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So our next one is February 20th. So police appealed for help after it is feared that 3 London schoolgirls have gone missing. What they were worried about was the fact that they might be traveling to Turkey with the intention of crossing the border into Syria and joining ISIS. Because that seems like a thing that a bunch of very stupid American and European women did.
There was a lot of them.
Yeah. And I'm like, you want to go from a place where you have a bunch of freedoms to a place where you have literally none. Right on. Seems stupid to me. I don't know. Just, it seems like a very poor choice to make. But we're going to move on. So our next one, probably the one that I focused on the most. So we have on May 2nd, Kate Middleton, all right, the Duchess of Cambridge, has her baby, her daughter, at St. Mary's Hospital in London, who becomes the 4th in line to the throne and Queen Elizabeth's fifth grandchild. And that would be Charlotte Elizabeth Diane.
She's not the American, right?
No.
No, it's the other one.
Yeah. That would be Meghan Markle.
Yeah.
Yeah, Meghan.
The revolution won't be complete until we rule England.
I'm just saying that, no offense, but Meghan Markle is not the best actress in the world. Okay? I can't say that I particularly liked anything that she's been in. But yeah. But I'm more interested in Kate. Because she married my favorite of the two.
They all suck.
Yeah. Well, we're going to move on.
Come at me, royalty people.
Next thing you know, we're going to have CIA watching our house, babe. We're not going to be able to travel out of the country.
My forefathers fought a war, so I shouldn't have to care about these people. And here we are.
I mean, how else was, the royalty supposed to survive? They just made themselves into a...
They're celebrities, that's all.
Yeah. But, I mean, who doesn't want to follow that? The drama of it. I don't know.
The answer should be no one. No, the answer should be everyone. Everyone should not want to follow that.
Okay. We're going to move on to our seedy side. Did I just interrupt the thought that you were going to have?
The royal family is no different than the Kardashians.
Oh my God. Listen, I don't know if I would go that far. Robert Kardashian could
be the king.
Well,
Kim's the queen.
He's dead.
Okay, so he's a historic king.
And then she remarried, right? To Kris Jenner, who's now a woman.
I think you're confused.
No.
You mean Bruce Jenner?
Oh, Bruce Jenner, yeah. And then didn't... Yeah, so what did he change his name to?
I don't care. Much as I don't care about the royal family.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to our CD side for 2015. Caitlyn Jenner. There we go. Kate Middleton, Caitlyn Jenner.
Like I said, they're basically the exact same thing.
Well, you know what? It might be... I'm sure to the British people it isn't. Like... Because it's like part of their heritage, their culture, their country, is like the royal family, and it's something that they, look up to. I don't know. But I've always had a fascination with...
Give it 3 more generations of Kardashians.
I've always had an interest in the British royalty.
Move on. CD side.
Yeah. All right. So the first one is January 15th. So a set of council offices, a funeral parlor, and a thatched cottage are extensively damaged after they are set ablaze due to a spate of arson attacks in South Oxfordshire. A suspect is arrested. That's all I could find. I want to know who did it. But I couldn't find out who did it.
Then why did it make our list?
Because it was interesting to me. I'm sorry. Maybe the next one will be more up your alley, babe. So on February 15th, we have pop star Gary Glitter is found guilty of sexually abusing 3 young girls between 1975 and 1980. This is the year for unmasking sexual offenders. All right, I'm just gonna throw that out there. There's There was like several more, okay? So next, we have February 13th, former TV weather presenter Fred Talbot is convicted of indecently assaulting 2 boys when he worked at a school in Greater Manchester, and remained in custody to await sentencing. He is cleared of a further 8 charges after that. Then on February 25th, we have the Independent reports findings that Jimmy Salva sexually abused 63 people connected to Stroke Manderville Hospital between 1968 and 1992. But the one formal complaint made was ignored. So I actually, Netflix did a series about this. And it was really interesting. Because you probably don't know who he is. He was like basically not a very good looking, like by standards today, he is not very good looking. Probably not the standards then. Like he hyped himself up to be like this, like he was like part comedian, part like chicken soup for the soul kind of person. And he did like live television, and he would like raise money for this hospital, and it turned out he was like sexually abusing people. It was crazy. And he had like this thing where he would like grant people's wishes. It was like really, like it was really strange, this guy. But the public loved him. Like just adored him. Like it was insane. But yeah, the documentary was really interesting. So you want to read the next one?
The stepbrother of 16-year-old Becky Watts, a schoolgirl reported missing 2 weeks previously, is charged with her murder after body parts are found in a house in Barton Hill, Bristol.
Yep. And that was on March 4th. Now, to finish that out, on March 9th, we have Theandra Satisfaction, a Irish settler who competed in the year's Crufts? Crufts. I'm guessing that is a dog show competition. Now, this dog dies after being supposedly poisoned at the Birmingham show. Now, organizers of the event say sabotage will not be tolerated after rumors that various other dogs had also been poisoned that year. I would be so livid if somebody killed my pet just because it won or it was like a good contender. Like that's kind of a dick move.
And mess someone up.
To like kill somebody's pet like that. That's a shitty thing. Ugh. Yeah. So now we're going to move on to our topic. We're going to talk about Stephen Port. Now, like I said, he is a convicted British serial rapist and serial killer. All right, so he did both. Now, he is responsible for the murder of 4 men and for committing multiple rapes. Now, Stephen received a life sentence with a whole life order on the 25th of November of 2016, meaning he will never be released from prison.
Ain't no parole.
Yep. So he's in there for the rest of his natural life. I'm not sure what he'll be doing after that. But who knows? They got a lot of haunted stuff over in England, so maybe. Now, in 2017, the BBC aired a documentary called How Police Missed the Grinder Killer. It examined the botched investigation of the Stephenport murders. I did not look that up, but the next thing I did watch. So in 2019, it was announced that BBC would produce a drama thriller titled The Barking Murders, written by Neil McKay. All right, so they did end up, recording that and releasing it. It came out it came out at the beginning of this year, I think. And they made sure that they, lined it up to, make after, all his appeals or whatever. So it wouldn't come out, and yeah, it was interesting. Now, like I said, I did watch that. It was amazingly well done. Really, like I said, it's basically based on the investigation led by the families of Stephenport's victims. It focuses literally on the first murder and the third. The families of those two victims, of actually digging up evidence for the police. And them constantly bothering the police to investigate. Because what the police were saying and what the family was hearing were two different things. And it was really suspicious. Yeah.
Stop breaking stuff.
So, I'm not sure if you know who Stephen Merchant is.
Sounds familiar.
But he actually played Stephenport. And I felt he looked pretty close. I mean, his performance was on par with David Tennant, who had just done one of another serial killer that was really interesting. I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head, but I'm sure I'll remember it later on.
Did you see the photograph of David Tennant at his son's Comic-Con?
Oh, yeah. Where he's not that important.
He's not that special.
Not that special. And it's the same thing his father-in-law did to him,
who
was another doctor on Doctor Who, which I love. And then his wife is the daughter of his wife also was on the show, but her dad was the doctor. It's really funny. Because she was in an episode where the doctor was her dad, and in real life, the actor that had played one of the doctors is her dad. So, yeah. So in January of 2021, it was announced that the broadcast of the program would be delayed until the inquest into the death of Porter's victims was complete. Now, the inquest was delayed due to COVID-19. And that series, I was right, aired in January of 2022. All right. So Stephenport
that can't be the name of the real city.
Southend-on-Sea. No, it is. Southend-on-Sea, Essex.
What kind of name is that? Southend-on-Sea?
Yeah, it's on the Southend-on-Sea. So when Stephen was about a year old, his family moved to East London, where he grew up and where his parents at the time still lived. I'm not sure about now. Now, he was described by others as a loner, and he was often bullied at school during his childhood. Now, former teachers also described him as quiet. His neighbors described him as having a peculiar childlike personality. And he also exhibited odd behaviors as a grown man, such as that he liked children's toys. So this is something that they did touch on in the show that they did. Was his obsession with trucks and toys. So it was Now, after leaving school at age 16, he went to art school, which unfortunately became a little too expensive for his parents. So he then spent 2 years training as a chef instead. Now, a former romantic partner of Stephen Port's described his personality as childish and said that and stated that as the reason why their relationship ended. Now, later in his mid-20s, he came out as gay. He lived with his parents up until his early 30s, then lived alone in a flat in Barking, London. Stephen worked as a chef at the Stagecoach Bus Depot in West Ham. Now, Stephen Port also briefly appeared on a episode of a television show, MasterChef.
I need to look this up.
Yeah. He was described as having an athletic appearance at the time of the murders due to his regularly going to the gym. Now, he was balding and disguised that with a blonde toupee, which he would wear out in public. Now, the hairpiece was professionally fastened and increased his confidence when meeting other men. All right. So Stephen Port met his victims online via like gay and bisexual social networking sites, dating or hookup apps. Now, he constructed biographies in all of these that made very flattering false claims about his background, including one in which he pretended to have graduated from Oxford University and serving in the Royal Navy. Now, in another, he gave his occupation as a special needs educator. Now, Port was known to use GHB, a date rape drug, to subdue his victims. So basically what he would do is he would add it into their drinks, and that's how he would knock them out. He would then sexually assault them. The murders of the 4 victims were committed in his flat in Barking. Now, the prosecution said post-mortem examinations on the 4 young men who died revealed that each had died from a drug overdose featuring high levels of GHB. Now, he was also known to use other drugs. I can't pronounce what the medical name of it is, but poppers. Do you want to take a swing at that?
Viagra?
No, this one right here. Aminitrine?
Aminal nitrite.
Nitrite. Yep. So poppers, Viagra, methadone, and methamphetamine, crystal meth, So those, he also used those ones. But the 4 murders, they died of the GHB overdoses. Now, the bodies of 3 of the 4 victims were found at the graveyard of St. Margaret's Church in Barking. And Stephen contacted his first victim, Anthony Walgate, on the 17th of June in 2014, pretending to be a client, and offered £800 for his services. I'm not sure what that translates into American
like
US dollars.
$1,000.
Yeah. So Anthony at the time was 23 years old, and he was a fashion student from Hull, which I'm not sure exactly where Hull is. I feel like it's toward the north. I know I'm probably way off. I feel like it's to the north in like northern England. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. Now Anthony occasionally worked as an escort to earn like extra cash, and so of course he took Stephen up on this offer. So he made a plan to meet him at the station in Barking. Now, once in the flat, in Stephen Port's flat, Anthony Walgate was drugged with the GHB and assaulted. Now, he finally died after Stephen gave him a fatal overdose of the GHB. Now, in the early morning of the 19th of June, Stephen Port dragged Anthony's body to the pavement outside of his flat and used his own mobile phone to call an ambulance. Now, not giving his name, he told an operator that he had been driving past and had seen a young boy who was collapsed on or had a seizure or was drunk on the street, basically. So he's like, I don't know what happened to this guy. He's passed out on the street. I think he might have had a seizure or he might be drunk or something. Then Stephen returned to his flat and closed and locked the door, basically. So shortly after 8 a.m., Anthony Walgate was pronounced dead. Now, evidence linked Stephen to Anthony's death was missed at the time by police, who believed that this was an accidental drug overdose. So Stephen was convicted of perverting the course of justice in 2015 because his account of the death and the police, what he said happened didn't jive. So he was sentenced to 8 months, but was released in June and was electronically tagged. So between August of 2014 and September of 2015.
Who does GHB recreationally? Is that like a thing?
Yeah. It's a huge thing in England, apparently.
Just to recreationally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it all has to do with the amount that you take. Like, if you take enough, it's going to knock you out and, like, fuck you up. Which is usually when it's used as a date rape drug. And then I guess, in smaller quantities, it's euphoric.
I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. So, yeah. So, that happens. And he gets released in June. And he's electronically tagged. Okay, yeah. So, between August of 2014 and September of 2015, he would go on to murder 3 more young men. The first one after Anthony Walgate would be Gabriel Kovari. Now, he was 22 years old, and he had just moved to London from Slovakia, and he had briefly lived with Stephen Port. The next victim would be Daniel Whiteworth. Now, he was a 21-year-old from Gravesend in Kent. Now, he worked as a chef. And then we have a 25-year-old Jack Taylor, who lived with his parents in Dagenham and worked as a forklift truck driver. Now, the bodies of our second and third victims, so Gabriel and Daniel, they would be found in the courtyard of the Church of St. Margaret in Barking. Now, they were also found, oddly enough, alright, so it would seem suspicious, but they are found both by the same woman walking her dog, alright, on totally different days, alright. So, she's out just taking her dog for a walk, and she, I guess, takes this same path every day and goes through that graveyard and church. She cuts through there. And she sees and actually notifies the police of both bodies.
Yeah, that's gotta suck.
Yeah, like you're just out walking your dog, and then like the first time it's gotta be so rough, and then the second time you're just like, oh my god, like really? And the fact that they had two in the same area, like, I can't believe that the police didn't automatically think this is a little suspicious, but they kind of didn't. Like, they were like, oh, well, it looks like a suicide. And they just, like, tried to write it off instead of, investigating it like it was a crime. Now, on the last victim that was found, the last victim was found in a park adjacent to the graveyard. So, like, it was, like, diagonal, like, but, like, very close together. So, Stephen had planted a fake suicide note on the body of Daniel Whiteworth, who was the last known murder victim. And that note suggested that he was responsible for the death of Gabriel, our second victim. And the note basically said that he had killed himself, like, out of guilt for accidentally causing the death of, like, Gabriel. Now, Stephen also used a number of internet hookup sites and apps as a means of initiating contact with his victims. And all of these victims were on a number of these, or at least one of these sites. So the sites that he used to find his victims were Sleepy Boy, Grindr, Hornet, Fit Lads, Badu, Gaydar, Flirt, Daddy Hunt, Planet Romeo, Manhunt, Slave Boys, and Couchsurfing.
I can only imagine what is on Slave Boys. Oh, the depravity.
It's like, yeah. Like, some of these I'm just like, like, no, the one that I want to know is Daddy Hunt. Like, is that just like sugar daddy kind of thing? Like sugar daddy meets like a sugar baby hunting site? Like, I don't know.
Where twinks go to look for not twinks.
You're throwing out words I don't know. Like,
twinks are effeminate gay men.
Oh, okay. All right. I get that now. Okay. Yeah. So now we're gonna get into the police inquest, or lack thereof. I honestly, I'm not trying to be so harsh on the police. I'm sure that the show specifically did not show them in a good light, because right now
it's the hip thing to do. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, I can't say, what was followed up on, what wasn't followed up on. But here's the information that I was able to find. Now, the original inquest into the deaths returned open verdicts. So, Nadia Poussard? Yeah. The coroner, however, said that she had, and this is in parentheses, so this is a quote. John, would you like to read that?
No, it's a lady.
Okay, I will read it then. No, you're going to read it?
I'm not just a quote reader.
Read the quote, babe.
Some concerns surrounding Whitworth's death, which have not been answered by the police investigation. Most concerning are the findings by the pathologist of manual handling prior to his death. The bed sheet that he was found wrapped in was not forensically analyzed, and the bottle of GBL, which was found near him, was also not tested for fingerprints or DNA.
Yeah. So, a detective was asked why the bed sheet had not been tested, and as far as I could see, there was no response. Like, it was just like, well, to the police, it looked clear cut. like what happened. So they didn't bother with forensically testing some things. So yeah. Now, the bodies of all four men are found within the vicinity of Stephen Port's flat in a period of just over a year from late September of 2014. So Walgate, obviously, he was found right outside of Stephen Port's door, and the three others were found in the graveyard or the park adjacent near Stephen's flat. Now, the Metropolitan Police, however, failed to link all of these deaths, even though they all died of the same drug overdose, the same drug, you know. Now, the first three victims were initially thought to have died in suspicious circumstances, but the Pink News website, which is like an LGBT newspaper, like news site and all that, and they basically got together because they believed that there was a serial killer hunting, gay men in Barking, like in London, So they kind of were like, they went to the police, and the police basically told them that the crimes weren't linked, and they were kind of right. But so they were trying to get this news out there that there was somebody basically hunting gay men in London, and that people should be cautious. Now, a BBC One documentary broadcast in March of 2017 suggested a catalog of police failings in the Met's response to these deaths. So, crucial witnesses were not questioned, for one. And that example would be Stephen Port's neighbor, who made an unexpected visit to Stephen Port's home. Witnessed Stephen in a dazed state with a large container full of white powder and bottles of clear liquid. He also reported receiving suspicious text messages from Stephen Port regarding Gabriel Kovari. Now, Kovari's previous landlord, John Pape, searched on the internet for any other unexplained deaths in the Barking area, and was astonished to find a similar case, that of Anthony Walgate, which he brought up to the police. He was like, hey, Gabriel, I knew him, I think he was murdered. And they kind of brushed him off as well. Now, especially given that the locations in which the body were found. However, Barking and Dunganham police did not link those cases together. Now, upon learning of Anthony, or is it Daniel? Wait, where it's Daniel. Daniel's death. John called the detectives at the Barking and Dunganham police and demanded to know whether they thought that all three cases were now linked and could be murder. And he was assured that they were not linked and that they were not murders. He also offered to be interviewed since he felt he might have relevant information regarding Gabriel's last movements, but no one reached out to him after that. Now, even after he had organizations such as Pink News contact the police on his behalf, the police still never followed up with him on any of these. Now, the woman who found Gabriel and Daniel's bodies 2 weeks apart in the same location, and oddly enough, she said that they were in almost the exact same position as the other. Like, they were like both leaning up against a stone wall, it like in the same area, and they were like in the same position, the same spot, you know. Now she reported thinking that the police had no idea what they were doing, uh, and thought it was like really strange that they didn't connect the two cases. Now, Daniel's stepmother says that when the police informed her of his death, they led her to believe that he had overdosed on drugs. Now, she was led to believe that despite no investigation having taken place. Now, the police continued to discount the bruises under his arms, which a coroner later stated meant that a third party had to be involved to do that, because there's no way you're gonna get bruises underneath your arms if you're not being carried by somebody. And they never ruled that out. Now, they took the supposed suicide note at face value that they found, and they even sent a small section of it to Daniel's father. Now, the small fragment of the note that they sent him, they basically just asked him to verify if that was his son's handwriting. Now, although they said that they were unsure of his writing, at the trial, they basically said that that it was confirmed as his handwriting, but it really wasn't. Like, they did not have any experts look at it, nothing like that. They basically just had a dad and his stepmom look at it, and they were like, is this his handwriting? And that's it. They closed the book on it. Now, when the couple were later shown the complete document of this suicide letter, his father immediately commented that he saw nothing to indicate that it had been written by his son. Now, the couple also asked whether the police had investigated who was meant by the guy I was with last night, which was referenced in the letter. And the response was that it would never be possible to find out who that was, who it's referring to. Now, when asked about about challenging the open verdict or continuing the investigation, his stepmother encountered a lot of pushback, and she described it as an attitude of, it is what it is, deal with it, basically. So, now, Taylor's sister reported that the police simply basically told her family Jack's dead, and that they should just accept that he had sat down by himself and overdosed on drugs. Now, her and her brother, she said her brother was very anti-drugs, and that he wouldn't take drugs knowingly or willingly. Now, she had another sister, her and her other sister, they contacted the police 11 days after the death of their brother to request an update on the investigation. And they were told that there was none, that it was an overdose, that there's no investigation. Now, they then researched for themselves and came across the 3 previous cases, but the police responded by denying that there were any connections between his case and the other 3 young men. Now, eventually, 2 weeks after his death, the police agreed to take the sisters to where Taylor's body had been found. Now, at Barking Station, they were told about CCTV footage of Taylor and another man leaving the train station together had been found. Now, the sisters were surprised not to have been notified of this, and more surprised to be told that the police were not attempting to look for this guy. Now, in response to their questioning of the credibility of the police account of what the footage showed, a sergeant with the police department later contacted them to say that upon reviewing the footage, it did not appear to be, it did not show Taylor entering the churchyard alone. Now, when they requested an image of the other man be made public in order to identify him, the police were reluctant, stating that they did not normally release CCTV images. Now, eventually, after much pushing on behalf of the family, eventually the police did give in, and they basically did an appeal for information with this image of this guy. And 2 days later, Stephen Port was identified from the images and arrested. So in 2015, Stephen was charged with 4 counts of murder and 4 counts of administering a poison. Now at the Old Bailey in June of 2016, prosecutors added 6 more charges of administering a poison, several charges of rape, and 4 of sexual assault. Now, he also faced 4 alternative charges of manslaughter. Now, Stephen appeared via video link from HM Prison Belmarsh and denied all of the charges. He said he didn't do it. Now, on the 23rd of November, 2016, Stephen was convicted of the assaults by penetration, rapes, and murders of all 4 victims, as well as the rape of 3 other men he drugged, and 10 counts of administering a substance with intent, and 4 sexual assaults. Now, he was found guilty on all counts. In total, 11 men were known victims of Stephen Ports. There could possibly be more. Now, commenting on the case, Malcolm McHiff?
Probably just McAfee.
McAfee? Yeah. Deputy Chief Crown Prosecutor for CPS London. You want to read that quote?
Over a period of 3 years, the defendant committed a series of murders and serious sexual offenses against young men. Port manipulated and controlled these men through chilling and calculated use of the drug GHB, which he administered without their permission. This was a technically challenging case, complicated by a significant amount of evidence taken from numerous social media sites Port used.
Yeah. So anything you put on the internet lives forever, apparently. And yeah, so they were able to dig up all of that, and they basically used it to show that, he was like hunting for people on these sites. Now, at the Old Bailey on the 25th of November of 2016, Mr. Justice Openshaw sentenced Stephen Port to life imprisonment with a whole life order, and he was incarcerated at HMP Belmarsh. So, in 2019, Gerald Matovo, who was known to have supplied Stephen Port with GHB used in the killings, was arrested and later convicted of the murder of actor and businessman Eric Michaels. Now, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 31 years. Now, he used a similar method to Stephen Port, and he targeted Eric on Grindr and gave him a fatal overdose of GHB. Yeah. So following the trial and all that, the Independent Police Complaints Commission opened an investigation into whether 17 police officers should face disciplinary action for failing to connect these murders. Now, as of November 2017, this was expected to be completed in the spring of 2018, but not made public until after the verdict in a new joint inquisition on all 4 deaths. Now, the inquest into Gabriel and Daniel were later quashed. Now, the families have also opened a civil claim against the Metropolitan Police. Now, the Metropolitan Police also reported in 2016 that they were re-examining 58 unexplained deaths involving date rape drugs. And a spokeswoman said that there was nothing to suggest that Stephenport was linked to any of those at this time. Now, police identified Stephen as a significant witness subject to a rape allegation hours after his first victim was found dead. So, in August of 2018, it was revealed that Stephen had lodged an appeal against his murder convictions. Now, in November of 2018, it was announced that Port's appeal had been rejected. Now, more interestingly, in August of 2020, a Brazilian chat show program. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of this chat show. But it's hosted by Fabio Porchetta. An audience member named Raphael told a dating story of a guy that he dated, Stephenport. Now, Raphael had moved to London in 2012, and he was 19 years old at the time, and he was working as a waiter when he met Stephenport on a dating website. Now, after they started dating, Raphael moved in to Stephen's apartment, where they lived together for a little over a month. Now, after they broke up, Raphael moved back to Brazil, where he got a different job and started, a new relationship. Now, one day he said he decided to search, some names on the internet, and just reconnect with people. And he put in Stephenport's name, and all these articles started popping up on BBC. So he said he read the words documentary and Stephenport and serial killer. So he was interested. He thought, Stephen must have made a documentary about a serial killer. That's cool. And then he went on to read some more and realized what it was actually talking about was Stephenport being a serial killer. Now, after he discovered that, he said, looking back, there were a lot of strange things going on in their relationship, apparently. And then another former partner of Stephenport's also claimed to have broken up with him due to similar strange behaviors. And in July of 2020, it was announced that they did announce that there was going to be a fresh inquiry was scheduled to take place in January of 2021 to examine all 4 deaths and probe into the police findings. So do you think they would have a tally sheet of oh, this is something that the family found, this is something the cops found? Is that how they're doing it? Or they're looking at it and the police are like, oh, well, at this time this became relevant information, and then I'm pretty sure that's how they're doing it. I don't know if that's. I mean, if they're doing it that way, it's a little rude. Because they're like, oh yeah, we found this information. But really, it was the family that found the information. I don't know. Yeah, usually, these 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 things lead to nothing. The one, well, I can't say they usually always lead to nothing. They usually lead to nothing here in the United States. All right. Because and it's just a waste of like taxpayer dollars here, I feel. Because, I mean, well, cops never get found responsible for anything that they fail to do. That's it. Yeah. What, you thought there was more? There was more on there?
No, I was just making sure.
Yeah, no, that was it. That was all the information I had. Pretty, pretty straightforward. Crazy case. Yeah, just psycho.
Well, I wonder if he intended to kill anyone. If it was just bad at administering drugs.
Well, no, like he had many successful uses of it prior to the murders. I think the first time it happened, it was exhilarating for him, and then he got away with it. All he got was a slap on the wrist for like lying to police about what he saw, and that was it. And then he did another one, and nobody asked any questions. So he thought, well, if I got away with it twice, do another one. Still nothing happened. So he did another one. So I think instead of like letting them go with the possibility that they might say something, that they were drugged and raped, and go to police with a complaint of sexual assault, he just started to kill them instead to like sort of protect himself. But I don't know. He up until now, I believe he still claims that he didn't do it.
Shaggy defense.
Yeah. Well, I can't even say that because I don't know exactly what his response to any of the evidence is, because I'm sure that they must have some sort of DNA evidence found in his apartment or something like that. They have to have other stuff other than the social media that's not been reported, obviously. So how do you just, you know, ignore all of that evidence and just say I didn't do it? But they have like DNA, they have all of this information that leads up to like absolute positive like guilty verdict. How do you just ignore all of it and just say like I don't know? I'm like I guess like the only thing you could say is I don't know what you guys are talking about. I've never met these guys in my life. Like what other possible?
I don't know. I don't have any evidence.
I know. I wish we did. That would be. Yeah. I mean, they until they do like a full deep dive documentary on it. I'm assuming that nobody will have any of that information as long as there's still inquiries and crap going on. They won't put any of that information out. But who knows? They might not even put out all the information because like it's the police. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, he had to go to trial, so
Yeah. Yeah.
all the evidence is there.
Oh yeah. I mean, oh yeah. It would become public record, right?
Yeah.
Damn. I didn't even think of that. Those briefs though are like thousands of pages long. It's a lot of reading. Maybe I'll look for it. Who knows? But as it stands right now, that's everything on the case. So I think we can close it out.
Bye.
Bye, guys.